Hi, I'm Yegi. I'm an entrepreneur and success coach who wants it all. Family, luxury, career, and the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I created the Yegi Project to document my journey and inspire others to do the same. My mission is to change the world by influencing and leading others to do what they love and live fulfilled lives.
Hello. Welcome back to the Yegi Project. Today's guest is Judy Henderson, and she has an exciting, unique story for you guys, which is her life. So without further ado, Judy, please, first of all, tell us who are you and what do you do today?
Hi, everybody. My name is Judy Henderson, and what I do today is I'm an admin assistant for Catholic Charities of Kansas City, St. Joseph. I love helping the people, the clients that come in, and we help babies, veterans, you name it, and we do it.
Beautiful. Thank you for that brief intro. So, Judy, take us back. Take us all the way back to super early days. How did you grow up? How did you get around to your initial career and transition? What happened? Take us back a little bit.
Okay, I'm going to take you back a little bit. I will also give you a brief timeline as to how quickly something like this can transpire and your life can just be flipped upside down. So I will start with, I'm the oldest of 8 children, actually 9 because we do have a stepsister. So we have a big family, very loving, tight, close-knit family.
Wow.
I grew up not in the church in the beginning, but then we started going to church in probably my junior high years maybe. Like being the oldest of 8, of course, you're the one that has to be your mother's helper. And
Yes, I could see you probably had to step in and act like a mother or a caregiver as well, being the eldest.
I most certainly did, yes. And then my mother had 3 of us, and she waited 5 years to have 5 more. So there was a gap there between us. And so, yes, I was like the surrogate mother, the one that would come and climb into bed with and hold on to my toes. And
Oh boy, honestly, that's difficult. I'm a mother of young children now, and I can only imagine kind of a child trying to take care of other children. It's a lot of responsibility, but I'm sure it forced you to kind of get everything together quicker,
Yes.
earlier. Do you feel like it shaped you to who you are today?
I absolutely do, because my mother was also an entrepreneur and she owned her own business. So I kind of followed in her footsteps after my divorce. We were in a very strict religion, so I couldn't date in high school. I didn't start dating till I was 18. And the gentleman that I dated, I ended up marrying, and we had 2 children. And it was the first guy I ever dated. And my daughter, Angel, we had her, and then 9 years later, we had our son, Chip. So, but the gentleman that I married became an abuser because he himself was abused. He was raised by an abuser. So, that learned behavior, it just keeps going generation after generation, usually.
Yeah.
So after about 12 years, I decided that, I could not take anymore. I had the courage to finally leave because Angel was 9 and was she 9? No, she was 12 when I finally left. And she was getting into the teen years, and I should have recognized it earlier, but being a battered woman and our thinking is wired differently. We're the caretakers. We try to think that everything, we can change it, we can fix it. And
Kind of get stuck in that day to day. It's
yeah,
tough raising a family, and you get stuck and you just go with it. You hope things get better. So I could
yes.
only imagine. Was there something that kind of drew you over the edge? You're like, okay, no, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to continue this trend with your family and your kids.
Yes, there was. The last time that he beat me, he knocked me through our front door, which was glass, and our daughter took off running down the street, and I said, that's it. I didn't know if she was safe. I had to try to find her, and she was down the street, and so I said, that's it. I can't put her through this anymore. And you don't realize what you're doing to the children when you're living.
You think you're doing it for them, sticking it out and helping them, but the reality of it's hurting them as well.
Absolutely, it is. And now my daughter has, we've had a lot of good conversations, and she's been telling me these things. So I did divorce him after 12 years. We divorced in June. He kept coming around and ripping up my clothes because I was a full-time working mother, middle-class mother that did everything. I did everything with my daughter. Like I said, my son was 3, so we weren't quite at that stage yet. And so Angel and I were already very close. And then whenever he kept coming around and tearing up my clothes, and I just couldn't handle it anymore, and I attempted suicide and ended up in the psychiatric ward.
So sorry to hear that. That must have
Thank
been
you.
really, really tough to go through.
Yes, it was, but it was an eye-opener, and it changed my path. Because the psychiatrist said you need to leave this area and move down where your mother and father are and your siblings, which was 300 and some miles away. So that's what I did. We lived with them for a short period. In February, I bought my own business. That was September and October that I was in the psychiatric ward.
Wow, it was almost like a tragedy, but a blessing in disguise to kind
Yes.
of knock some sense into you. Be like, okay, you need a dramatic change. This is
Yes.
your chance.
Yes. So I did that, and I bought the business, and it was thriving. It was very good.
What business was it, if you don't mind me asking?
It was whenever it was called Terrific Tanning Salons.
Ooh, okay.
And it was a chain, but you could buy your own individual salon, which is
Which is a great first business to own because at least you get some guidance.
Yes, and I mean, if I had not went to prison, I can't only imagine what it would have done now, because back then I had boots, that you walked in, and like a minute was equal to an hour in the sun. So they were very, very strong boots. Plus I had, a masseuse and a masseur. We did body wraps. We did multiple things for...
And back then, was that kind of a newer trend?
Yes.
Yeah, so I could see that doing really well as being one of the first.
Yes, I was getting on the foundation of all of that. And I was very good at business. I was an exceptionally good person whenever it came to navigating deals, whenever it came to doing PR work.
And you said your mother was an entrepreneur. Do you think you picked those things up from her subconsciously?
I did. I think so. I think I did, Yegi. Yeah.
What was she into?
She was into hair salons and wig shops, and
Oh,
she even
nice. So beauty.
yeah, she even sold some to some country stars that I won't mention their name, but
Very good.
one of them she's very, very famous, that wears a lot of blonde wigs. So she was one of my mother's customers. So, I would help her out there. And even on weekends, whenever I was married, we would come down there for the weekend because his parents lived there also. And I would go to my mom's shop and work with her, just to be around her and be with her.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised at things you pick up, especially when you're young. Kids really, we learn more from just watching compared to somebody sitting and teaching us something.
Exactly. And I'm not hands-on type of person anyways. I would rather do it than just read about it. I learned faster that way. So I ended up getting my own business, and it was doing well. And then in April, I was at dinner with some friends, and up walked my co-defendant, and they introduced me to him. He was very suave, debonair, and charismatic, and wore a 3-piece suit, real estate broker, had been in the ministry, just everything you think.
Yeah, charmer, definitely a charmer.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And, he had a good career. And then I introduced him to my parents. They loved him for the fact that he had been in the ministry. But what I should have paid attention to was had been in the ministry.
Some of those red flags we miss when we're blinded by a shiny object.
Exactly. So true, Yegi. So true. And a lot of women still do that. It's sad, but we do that.
We're human.
Yeah, right. But my aunt, on the 4th of July, we ended up going down to my aunt's house for a pool party. And we were in the pool, and she said, Judy, what's he doing on the deck reading a book on manipulation? And I said,
Wow.
yeah. And another
Wow.
red flag. But do you think I paid attention to it? Of course not.
No,
You
you
know?
were too charmed.
Yeah. And I
And
was,
we do it. I think this is a good reminder for all our listeners out there.
yeah,
Really pay attention to the clues and red flags, because
yes.
at least look into it and make sure it's nothing.
Yeah, sinister or something dark or something that's going on. But I pass it off as I told her, I said, well, he's in the real estate business. So I'm assuming he sells large commercial real estate to big people. So I'm sure that he just has to, he's reading that for that reason.
Yeah, it's crazy. When you have a pure heart, you just try to justify
Yeah.
those red flags. I could see that happening, honestly. We try to see the good in people, which is a
Right.
great trait to have, but
Mhm.
there's that fine line between seeing the good and trying to play it off, or just really trying to cover up the red flags because we really like this person.
Yeah, and that's what I did. But before we went down there in June, my son was at a nursery because he was 3 years old. So I picked him up from the nursery and brought him home.
So this is
And
all still immediately after the
Mhm.
divorce, the
Yes,
moving,
yes.
getting the business, meeting this gentleman. Okay.
So the divorce was June, the psychiatric ward was October. The business was February. I met him in April. In June, I got home and I walked in, and in the foyer was suitcases. And I had no idea who these suitcases belonged to. And he popped around the corner and I said, whose suitcases are these? And he said, they're mine. I said, what? Yeah. I said, I don't have gentlemen living with me in my home with my children. And he said, well, I think it's a good idea. I think we're at the point where, I would like for us to become a family and I would like to take care of you and the children. And of course, there I was. Oh
As
my
a
gosh.
woman, you do want to hear that, but
Yes. And it sounded great. Oh my gosh, he really wants to do this. And he's so nice and polite and not jealous and not hitting me and not rude to me and not calling me this name and that name. So I thought, well, this has to be good. But little did I know that there was another side of him and associates that he was doing business with that were rather on the shady side. I had no idea that was going on because I was in my own little world with my children and my
then
business.
you're just excited for something nice and
Yeah.
decent after a
Mhm.
bad divorce.
And, as a battered woman, you learn not to ask questions. That was just
Yeah,
something you just learn not to do unless you want to get hit. So
yeah.
I didn't think
You
to
get
ask.
conditioned to just
Yeah.
keep it in, just to not continue it. I could see that.
Yeah. So I didn't ask any questions. And then the murder happened in the middle of July.
A murder.
Yes. So I met him in April and moved in June, and the murder happened in July. And that's whenever I saw a side of him that was terrifying. I never, ever knew that. I mean, he hid it so well. I had no idea that he had this side where they had associates that dealt in different things and they were doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Yeah, and so I happened to be there when the murder occurred. I was grazed by a bullet. We ended up going to Alaska because a hitman was sent to kill us
Oh my gosh.
by some of the associates.
And this was all mixed within the real estate business
Yes.
he was involved in, and you had no idea.
No, none whatsoever. And I knew he wanted to talk to this gentleman. He said that I guess there was some dispute going on about money, and he needed money to get his. He was separated, had been separated for quite some time, and wanted to get his divorce, and said he needed $10,000 to do that. And so this was just a business deal. He needed to talk to this gentleman. And so I didn't think anything about it. I mean, that sounded legit to me. But yeah, but it ended up being a robbery murder. And
And you were
yes,
there.
yes, Yes, and I was there. And so we ended up going to Alaska, but in the book, When the Light Finds Us, it tells a lot more details about everything, how it all occurred, and then why we had to go to Alaska because the hitman was sent to kill us. But the reason the hitman did not kill us was because my mother, years before that, when this gentleman came to town with him and his family, his children and wife, they were homeless. They had no food, they had no clothing,
The
they had no place
hitman?
to live. I'm sorry?
The hitman when
Yes.
it came.
Yes. And my mother, she wore dress, heels, drove a Cadillac, but she would always take care of the homeless. She would go to the
That
railroad
gave me
track.
goosebumps.
I know. And she would go under the bridges and try to help them and give them what they needed. My stepfather was a minister. And so I was blessed to have him as my stepfather. He was great. We called him Teddy Bear. He was so gentle. And unlike my father, was very abusive. So we ended up, whenever he came to kill us, my mother always had a picture of me in her shop. And
He recognized you.
he recognized me.
My gosh.
Yes.
Now I'm getting all emotional.
I know. Yes, yes. He looked at me and he said, "Are you so and so's daughter?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "I'm not going to kill you today."
Oh.
And I said, I didn't know what to say. I was speechless anyways when he came in the hotel room and had a
imagine.
yeah, and because I was already shocked and in fear of my life at the moment when he said that, and he said, "And the reason is because your mother helped me and my family when I came to town. We had nothing." And so
is that where the title of the book comes from?
somewhat,
Okay.
because
We have to read it to know.
yes, there's different miracles that you will see in there because that wasn't the first hit that was put out on me by my co-defendant. But so we ended up going to Alaska and he took all my IDs. I didn't have anything I couldn't call anybody, talk to my family. But you will see
the kids.
The kids were with their father. It was visiting. My daughter was up there with him because she was raised in that neighborhood. So she had a lot of friends right there in the neighborhood next door, across the street. And so she was visiting them. And I think she was going to church camp, if I remember correctly. But I had no idea that we were going to go to Alaska. But in the book, you will see how my family knew where I was. They just didn't know if I was dead or alive. And that was a situation that I had to take into my own hands because I honestly didn't think I would live. I really thought they would go ahead and kill me because they said I knew too much. So we ended up going there, and then when we got arrested, there's a lot that goes on up in Alaska too. When I did get arrested, we had the same attorney representing both of us, which I found out was a serious constitutional conflict of interest. You cannot adequately represent two defendants on the same case and be able to save one and send the other to prison. It was just because you can't speak of the truth. And I went to trial first, so he would not allow me to take the stand. The attorney wouldn't. And I later found out the only reason that my co-defendant wanted the same attorney is so he could sit in on all of the meetings. He could firsthand
save himself.
Hear our strategy. He could hear what witnesses we were going to put on, what they were going to say. But on the side, he was seeing two other criminal attorneys. When I was found guilty, he fired him and he hired the other two attorneys, and he was acquitted of the murder.
So he got nothing.
Got nothing, right?
This makes me so angry.
I know, kid, it did me too. I mean, whenever it was a capital murder case, that's what they charged us as. And all they had was mitigating evidence on me, circumstances. I was present, but
that's our law and system.
Yes. But let me tell you, Yegi, the chief prosecutor that convicted me, he was running for election that year. And so, of course, they've got to look like they're tough on crime. Let's just give her the max. And the capital murder carried either life without parole for 50 years or the death penalty. So I came within, if they had given me the jury has to go back out after they find you guilty. They have to go back out and decide which of those two sentences you should receive. And had I received the death penalty, I would have been executed electrocuted or in the gas chamber back then after I'd done 18 to 20 years. I wouldn't be sitting here today.
Goodness.
Yes, so it was quite the journey.
I could
And
only imagine from
yes,
wanting a happy family after a crazy divorce to
hmm
getting thrown into literally jail
yes.
for something that you didn't even know you were part of.
Right, yes. And so we ended up, I ended up, of course, going to prison, getting life without parole for 50 years. And I was angry. You can't even imagine how angry I was. I was angry at God. I
Could only imagine. I'm angry now for you, and
yeah,
you're already okay. But just
yeah.
hearing the story makes me so angry.
No one in my family had been arrested or been in jail, went to prison, anything like that. So our family really did not know how to navigate the judicial system or the legal system. We didn't know what to file, what to go, would happen next. It was just all by trial and error. And so whenever I went to prison, of course, I was angry. I was scared. I didn't know. That was a totally different world than what I was accustomed to. And but I had to learn how to navigate, and that's where my co-defendant put a contract out on me with another offender that he had been in the county jail with. She had been in the cell with me, and so she already knew who I was. So when she came to prison, she befriended me, and I thought we were friends until another offender came up to let me know she took a contract out on me. And I said, what? He said, yeah, she picked up a contract that was put out on you.
Sorry,
So,
what does that mean? I'm not really
okay,
familiar with that
that
term.
means that my co-defendant, while I was sent to prison, he started talking with her because she was still in the jail, awaiting trial. And she was like a career criminal. This was her life. She kept going in and out, and she was known for carrying a shank. So, a shank is a homemade knife that they make in prison. And so he told her he wanted me dead, and she took the contract.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, so when she came to prison, she immediately, because we had already been in the cell together,
Well, she
I
was
didn't think anything
manipulating you
about
to
it.
be your friend, but she had other plans.
Yeah, yeah, it was another plot, another plan. And so I had to take matters into my own hands, which I'm not a woman of violence. I don't like violence. Whenever it comes to me living, I had to do what I had to do.
Of course, I could only imagine. I mean, at that point, it's not even your morals, it's survival.
Correct, correct. So I ended up having another lifer hold what they call bust at the door, not let anybody in. And I took her in there and I just started talking to her. And what helped me do this and save my life is the beatings my ex-husband used to give me. I remembered how he did it. How he'd pull his hands back and when he was getting ready to talk, and then he would come at me with his right hand. And so that taught me how to attack her. And so who would have thought that my battering? Yeah, it's crazy.
Life is interesting how certain things kind of come in play, and you like, maybe this is the reason this horrible thing happened to me, to one day be a tool.
Yes, yes, it was crazy. And so that kind of helped me too. So we had the fight. She pulled a shank out from her bra, and I had to knock it out of her hands before she could use it on me. And then in came all the officers, which in prison they called a goon squad. And they threw both of us in the hole, solitary confinement. And they shipped her to Kansas, and she ended up cutting a girl's face up there. Yeah, and so, but I'll tell you, that helped me set a foundation in general population. They call it general pop, where everybody knew if you mess with me, then here's what I'm capable of, and I will do it if I need to.
Yes,
So,
at least it gave you your status to try
yes,
to be more safe in there.
yes, because in there, I still tried to be who I was out here. I would still do my hair, I'd put on my makeup, was polite to people. I smiled a lot, and that's just my personality. That's my nature, helping people or doing what I can. But they take your kindness for weakness. So then they will take advantage of that. So it was
You had
important.
to navigate a whole new world.
Yes, new language, new terms, new slang, new rules, new policies, everything.
And how long were you in there for?
36 years.
My goodness, a whole life.
Yes, all my 30s, all my 40s, all my 50s, most of my 60s, and I was released when I was 68. Yes. But I'll tell you what, you know what? I did find the light in there. I was able to see where God did not, um,
Well, take us through your emotional journey then within those 36 years that you were in there. Clearly, you were very angry at first and mad
yes,
at everybody. Take
right.
us through that emotional journey to finally finding the light and coming to terms with what it is.
Sure. So I ended up finding out about the battered women syndrome. I'd never heard of it before. So I didn't know that that was me. And they had a
Mhm.
group come from a larger city and came down and spoke. And they spoke about battered women. And the more they talked, the more I realized, oh my gosh, that's me. I lived that. That's the honeymoon phase, the fighting phase, you know, all the phases. That is what I lived with for 12 years and even before that, because I haven't had an abusive father. But that is what started my journey to therapy, to
Try to heal from that
yes,
syndrome. Once you were
yes,
aware that, hey, I there's something's wrong. I've
yes,
been, abused, so now I have all these baggage I need to deal with.
yes. And that's what I did. Really worked hard on my therapy, trying to understand what got me here, why I didn't see the signs, plus the love that I had for my family and my children, and coupled with the anger that I carried, fueled me. Anger can either be, it can either make you bitter or it can make you better. And I chose to use that anger to make me better, to be more resilient, to be more persistent, to be more courageous, to be more brave, and to fight for my freedom to go home.
So since you did know you were there pretty much for life, what gave you that hope, that there could be better days?
I had exhausted all my appeals through the courts, even though they admitted that there was some sandbagging going on. That was their term that I have on a cassette tape from the federal courts. But they could not overturn my case because it would affect too many other cases retroactively and cost the state too much money.
So
They
unfair.
They just left me there. It didn't matter. All they cared about was the dollar cost, the money, that's what they cared about for the state. But my therapy and everything very seriously because I had a daughter and I did not want her to go through and end up having this like generational curse that was my mother was battered, I was battered. I wanted it to stop. I had to become a strong woman in the right way and help raise my daughter from bars, from behind bars, and navigate being her mother even from afar. And the only way I could do that is healing myself and understanding how to help her not be what I had become. And, I thank God to this
That's
day.
beautiful, honestly. The way you put that, that's beautiful. It's
Thank you.
I could see how difficult that could be, honestly, but that's beautiful that you had that strength and realization that, hey, there's still a way. Like, even though I'm behind here, there's still a way for me to try to be better for our next generation.
Yes, yes. And then I looked around, Yegi, and I saw other offenders that were mothers but didn't know how to be mothers, didn't know
Yeah.
how to mother behind bars or how to talk to their children or how to start having that close bond. And so I helped start with other lifers programs for mothers and their children. We did parenting classes to teach them how to be parents. We helped them learn their child's love language, and they started having better communication, and a bond was forming with them and their children so they could help bring that generational curse that had plagued their families generation after generation. And not only that, but I became a certified paralegal. I became a hairdresser. I became a dog trainer.
While you were in there.
Yes, I became a personal fitness trainer and a group fitness trainer, and I'm certified in all those things to this day.
That's
So
beautiful.
I
You
can train
really
a
made
dog,
the
train
most out of it.
I was going to take advantage of everything I could. They wanted me, I wanted them to pay for me.
Yes, at
And
least, you made the best of it.
yeah,
Like you said, you can either be bitter or better, and you chose better, and that's
yes.
beautiful.
Yes. And So, and I taught my daughter how to cook over the phone, whenever she would have breakups or, need some advice on dating. We were
How was your
able.
relationship with your kids in the beginning? Were they angry with you, or how did I could only imagine, I mean, if they, I could see like children resenting parents if they're not around for whatever
Sure.
reason, even though they don't understand a lot of things that you went through. But
Right.
how was your relationship with them in the beginning?
In the beginning, it was still good with my daughter, and I got to see my son up till he turned 5, and then my ex-husband would not allow me to see him any longer. But my daughter, my family made sure that she came to see me. We talked over the phone all the time. Even as she got older, she went to college, UMKC, and she graduated summa cum laude. She's the executive director of a home for moms and babies to this day, and I'm so very, very proud of her, of course. But and she just told me recently after reading the book, she said, Mom, one reason I was so close to you, not just because you're a great mom, but she said, because I knew I could be honest with you about everything and you couldn't ground me. I said,
Whatever the reasons were, we'll take it.
whatever it was, I'm just glad, that you felt safe enough to talk to me about it. And it was, she could confide in me without me getting others involved. And she knew it was a safe place for her. And so we're still great.
That's so important for us to make our kids feel safe. So even no
Yes.
matter what's going on, for them to be able to come to us.
Yes, absolutely. And I felt fortunate because I see whenever I came home, there's a lot of parents that don't even have that connection with their kids, even with them here with them.
Yeah,
And
no,
without
that's
any
very
obstacles.
common. Because parents, generationally, we've been conditioned to be like, okay, you're the adult figure. You need to do the right thing
Mm-hmm.
compared to just actually listen and be their friend and be there for
Mm-hmm.
them for what they need. So it
Yeah.
takes a lot of work for us to change our mentality and parent, but also not judge and
Right.
be there for them when they need us, even when they've done something wrong.
Yeah, and it's good if you listen to them and let them voice their opinion about why did you do that? What caused you to do that? How could you have handled that differently? A
Yeah.
lot of parents don't take the time to discuss those things with them. They just want to punish them and not try to have that communication that
Yeah.
makes the kids understand.
Recently, I read a quote and I loved it, and it's a lot of times I could see that happening. Is it said, "Don't lecture your child when all they need is a hug," and a lot of times
Yeah,
that's the case. They just need the comfort and understanding and guidance after whatever mistake they've made
right.
compared to being lectured because they know things went wrong already.
Exactly. It's not like they didn't know that that wasn't what they should be doing. They knew they wasn't supposed to be doing it, They just didn't like it because you found out about it. But yeah, and so I had to fight for my freedom because I was not going to die there. And they kept telling me, Judy, I don't know why you keep filing these clemencies to the governors because you're going to die here. They're not going to release you, so you just need to settle in. And I said, no, I'm going home. I'm going home. They thought I was cray cray.
You have that hope, but that's where it starts. You need to believe
Yes.
for something to happen. So bring us back to today. So how did you finally get your release, and what did you do the first thing you got out?
Okay, so whenever I got my release, I've been through 6 governors, and because some of them, served 2 terms, which is 8 years, a total of two 4-year terms. 3 parole boards for 3 different governors recommended my release, but they chose not to go by the recommendation of the parole board members that they themselves appointed to make the decisions as to when offenders are ready for release. So I thought that was rather ironic. Wow. So that kind of ticked me off when I found out that.
Yeah, because you really hope for the system and everything to be as fair as
Yeah,
possible. It's really disappointing if when you realize, or if you come to realization, hey, life really is not fair. Like things don't work how you really think
right.
they should work.
Yes. And that's whenever you have to figure out, okay, are you going to let that define you?
Yeah.
Are you going to allow that to keep you from moving forward in your life? Or are you going to use that to your benefit and the benefit of helping others. And I think that's where your growth comes in, whenever you realize you were created for a purpose. And I was blessed to be able to find what my purpose was during that
What is it?
incarceration. I was able to help women and I was able to help the children. Whenever I did my last clemency, it was the seventh governor, which to me is God's number of completion. So that was like a sign. Okay, yay, God, you are here. You're in the midst of this, and you are the light. And that's where I had a verse up above my jail mirror that said, Jeremiah 29:11, I know the plans I have for you, plans for a future.
So do you think somehow, I guess with the signs and everything, you were in there for this long to really figure everything else out internally until you were ready to be your full perfect self and serve your purpose?
I do think that. I really do think that, because no governor ever releases a lifer or any offender in the first year of their first term. They look at that as political suicide. But this governor came in December and he hadn't even been a governor for a whole year. It would have been in January when he took office. So he came to the prison, said he did not want any media coverage. This was about me and my family. And he brought his team. Whenever they told me I had an attorney visit through the week, I said, no, my attorney would not come without letting me know ahead of time so I could do full makeup and get the hair ready. Because they already knew. My family, everybody already knew. And so I refused to go at first. And then they said, Judy, if you don't go, we're taking you to the hole. So I had immediate change of heart.
All right, in that case, here I come.
Are we there yet? So I went up there, and it took him about an hour before I could go into the visiting room. And I thought that was so odd. So I was really feeling negative. I was really scared that something had happened to my family or something. I didn't really think it was about a clemency at all. And so that's what floored me. And then whenever I walked into the visiting room, I saw the governor's attorney that had been there to see me like 3 weeks prior. And when he came that time with my attorney, he said, I'm just here to ask you some questions that the governor wanted me to come and ask you. He said, this doesn't mean that he's releasing you. It doesn't mean that there's anything going to happen, but he just wants some questions answered. And I'll go back and have a meeting with him this afternoon. And he said, we'll see how it goes. And so when I saw him, though, I said, Justin, what are you doing here? And I thought, oh, gosh, he came to tell me I'm denied. You know, I'm not.
Well, it's sad, but yeah, well, your brain goes in the most negative place initially.
And so he said, no. He said, actually, there's somebody that wants to meet you that's been waiting to see you. He said, turn around. So whenever I turned around, there was the governor right behind me. And I don't know how he snuck up on me like that, because you're pretty alert in prison whenever it comes to people coming up on you. And so whenever I saw him, kid, I just started crying and I fell to my knees. And I knew then that it was good, you know.
That's beautiful, honestly. That was your little sprinkle of hope that things get better.
Yeah. And he told me, he said, Judy, he tapped me on the shoulder and he said, let me help you up. He said, I want you to sit down here and I'm going to read your commutation to you. And so he started reading and he said, I commute your sentence to time served, immediate release. I looked at him and I said, what did you just say?
Believe what you were hearing.
Oh, kid, I asked him 3 times. Are you
sure?
Yeah, I said, that's what I would say. Are you sure? You mean today? You mean right now I'm leaving prison? He said, right now you're leaving prison. He said, and I want to apologize on behalf of the state of Missouri that you've been locked up so long away from your family and your children. And he said, so I'm going to get out of the way. And there's people here that's been waiting to see you free for a long time. Yeah. And so he moved out of the way, him and his staff, and they opened the door and there was my children and my sisters and family. I know.
It's enough to make me cry.
No. I know. And I was, oh my gosh, it was just like, whew, this is really happening. And so then the warden came in and he said, Judy, we're going to let you go back down to your cell and pack the things that you want to take. And he said, I've got 2 officers to escort you. I said, okay. And he said, then when you come back up here, you can leave. And so we started down to the yard, which is like 2 blocks away from the visiting room. And they said, now, Judy, we're just going to act like nothing's happened. I said, okay. They said, can you do that? I said, yeah, I can do that. And so, kid, all of a sudden we heard all this screaming and yelling and this hoopla. And there was 16 women on the yard, officers, captains, sergeants, staff from everywhere that had seen it on the monitors, that the governor was there.
And we're celebrating you.
I looked at those 2 officers. I said, okay, well, what's plan B? Because plan A is not going to work.
You're probably smiling ear to ear and crying.
I am. And so we got down to the yard, and they had to just move the offenders out of the way and the staff so I could get to my cell and start packing my property. He said, if there's anybody you want to see, just let the office caseworkers know, and they'll bring them over to tell you bye, or for you to tell them bye. So I did. And that was kind of bittersweet, because I'd made them family. We had like a little family.
Excited.
Yeah. Even to see the staff, it was, but some of the staff I'm friends with today. One caseworker, she said she wasn't going to retire until I went home. She said, I know, kid, she didn't. She stayed there, and I was released December 20th, 2017. She retired in July.
Wow.
So, yeah.
It's very heart filling and warming to hear, there's really good people out there that exist that are fighting for you, no matter everything else.
Yes, exactly. My co-defendant, like I said, he never did a day of time. However, he did pass away a couple years ago of COVID.
Good. I'm just kidding.
I know, right? I wasn't going to say that.
I don't wish bad upon anybody, but now I'm still angry at him for putting you through all of that.
I know. And I was still a little leery when I came home because I didn't know if he was still going to try to do something. I didn't know because, of course, I was going to speak out. I had a message to give to people, to women. And I wasn't going to be still. So it took us 6 years to write the book, but we did it very methodically, and we wanted all the facts to be there, the emotions to be there, and we wanted the audience and those who read it to feel that hope, to know they can have that same hope if they're in a situation that they don't see any way out.
Now, where can our listeners find the book?
Okay, so I have a website, judyannhenderson.com, and you can find it there and see a lot of other things there, pictures of me as a little girl and my family. You can also go to Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and other bookstores.
Beautiful.
So if anybody would like to, after you read it, I would love for you to write a review on Amazon and let people know what you think about the book, and let me know, because I like to read them. I like to know that the 6 years of work and the 36 years of being incarcerated is helping somebody.
Yes, definitely reviews are important. So our listeners, please pick up the book, read it, write your reviews. It only takes a few minutes. For us behind the scenes, it helps us a lot with reviews to spread the word. And so other people that could really use the book or the podcast or whatever you're reviewing, they can know if this is the right fit for them. And it helps us get the word out there. So please take your time. 5 minutes, write the review, and we will really, really appreciate that.
Yes, thank you.
And what are your top 3 life lessons that you learned along the way that you would want our listeners to ponder on and think about from today? Top 3.
Okay, the top 3. You're never too old to learn something new.
Okay.
You're never in a tight situation that you can't get out of.
Okay.
And you have to watch the signs, because it's like a roadmap. Your life is, and you have to listen and know when your gut's telling you to turn left or turn right, or don't turn at all. And pay attention whenever you're in a situation that does not feel right.
Really, just listen to your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, listen to it. Don't justify anything.
Yes. But I want people to know that everything they need, in my belief, is you were already born with it. All you have to do is nurture it. You already have all those gifts. You already have all those powers, that resilience, that courage, that bravery. You just have to believe you have it and use it.
That's beautiful. The last thing I always ask is your last words of encouragement, but it just sounded like you did give us that one already. So
Yes.
please, thank you to our listeners for tuning in, and thank you so much, Judy, for sharing your story. I'm touched. I can't wait to read the full book. You
Thank
already
you.
got me crying.
Oh, well, you'll have laughing periods, you'll have crying periods, and so
Hey,
I just
that's the best type of story to take you
right.
through all the emotions.
Yes.
But thank you again for your time, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. And if you guys have any questions, comments, feel free to reach out to myself and Judy on her website. But until next time, bye.
Bye. Thank you, Yegi.
Thank you for listening. Please rate and review this podcast. Follow and engage with us on social media under the Yegi Project. And if you're interested in being a guest, email info@theyegiproject.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.